Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View Ohio Policy Talk. I'm your host, Anastasia, and today we are diving into a topic that is critical but sometimes overlooked, and that is housing opportunities for rural Ohio communities. Joining us today is a very special guest, Charles Tassell, the newly appointed State Director for Rural Development at the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Director Tassell has worn a lot of hats over the years, from working in local government and shaping public policy to leading national real estate efforts. Now in his new role, he's focused on boosting economic development and helping strengthen our rural areas. Thank you so much, Director, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Anastasia.
And I'm also excited to welcome Christie Hooks, the Housing Program Director at USDA Rural Development in Ohio. Christie brings a wealth of hands-on knowledge about the housing programs and is going to help us dive into the nuts and bolts that realtors and home buyers really need to know. So, Christie, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here as well.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Director Tassell, you have been active in government and public policy for a while. Can you share a bit about your background and kind of what your responsibilities look like now that you're in this new role at USDA?
Sure, Anastasia. It's interesting. I appreciate the opportunity to come for realtors. I've worked with realtors and different realtor boards over the years. Background, I actually worked for the Apartment Association for a number of years down in the Cincinnati area, and then worked on development, was an advisor, a variety of different processes of development, from whether it's the road side of things to buildings to multifamily to single family suburban layouts. Worked as a council member in Deer Park for about 8 years, which was a great time. I enjoyed that. We ended up moving out during COVID to much larger, a little more space. We had 5 of us in about 1,400 square feet. It was this is not tenable anymore. So we expanded a little bit, which gave me a nice opportunity to transition. I was working with as the COO of the National Real Estate Investors Association, and 40,000+ members across the country. A lot of folks interested in, again, most of the realtors know who the real estate investors are. They're buying, they're rehabbing, they're flipping, moving through those processes, and building ideally wealth for themselves as entrepreneurs. And with that kind of mindset in hand, in my heart, to be honest, coming to rural development was a great opportunity. So I appreciate the Trump administration for allowing me to be here. Appreciate the honor of being appointed to be state director. And I'm coming into a great team of folks who have fantastic knowledge. And this is one of those interesting things. Part of the reason I chose to stay in Ohio was I don't have to go work in the swamp. Everybody says, oh, this, that, and the other. It's like, well, I'm actually working with Buckeyes, helping Buckeyes. And that's really where we're at. We're good Ohioans helping other Ohioans. And we've got 80+ programs that help the range of projects, from everything from community facilities, so think fire departments being built and the structures around those, to kind of a business and industry perspective. So helping businesses, whether it's energy efficiency programs or if they need some guaranteed loans, which on the housing side, from the grants to the loans to the guaranteed loans, which is we do through direct, and then there's also through the banking side of things. So that's kind of the area that we can help with.
But, well, it sounds like you've really landed in a place that kind of pulls together all of your different experiences. And I love what you said about Buckeyes helping Buckeyes. I mean, I love that community impact and that value. I love it. I respect that a lot. And Christie, I'd love to hear your story too. What is kind of your background and what drew you into this work?
Honestly, I came into the government just on a whim. I have an aunt that's in her 80s. She actually used to work for rural development probably about 40 years ago. And she was in town and we were going to lunch, and she goes, hey, I need to stop by my old workplace. And they said, we're hiring for a housing assistant. This was in 2001. And I applied for it and got it. And then they've just been stuck with me for 24 years since then. And I've just started at a very low level housing assistant, and I've worked myself up to housing program director, and I just love it. And our staff is the best in the country, in my opinion. And they're so passionate about what we do and the people that we serve and each other. So it's just been a really great place to work.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have, 20, you said 20, over 20 years?
24. Yeah.
24 years of, straight housing expertise. So that's very incredible. That's invaluable. But so many people might not realize that USDA is actually involved in housing, but it sounds like there's quite a few ways that the USDA assists homeowners, like you said, through loans. Can you both talk a bit about, I think you mentioned the 502 direct loans and the guaranteed loans. What are they, and what is the difference between the two?
Well, so there's two parts to this, and one is working through your bank, and if you go in and you can get a guaranteed loan, which the USDA comes in and backfills and guarantees it, as long as it meets specific criteria. And that's really going through the normal bank process. That is one side. The other side is actually coming through our local offices. And I'll mention to you, we have an office in Columbus, but we also have 4 remote offices: Marietta, Massillon, Findlay, and Hillsborough. And working through those offices, and our folks are great. They're fantastic people there all the time, reaching out, taking calls, and they can help you process what it takes to go through the process. Again, as you well know, getting a house is not quick and easy. There's a process to it, and really getting this app started early is critical. And I'll defer to Christie on some of the technical aspects. She is intimately familiar with this, and really that's one of the things you've got as a real asset here in Ohio is you've got people that are passionate and knowledgeable to be able to help others.
Yeah. Would you like to know a few of the key things for the programs?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have what's called 502, and that's our direct home loan from us. And then that's also a 502 guaranteed loan, and that's through the lender. With both programs, there's no down payment. We can loan for the entire amount up to the appraised value of the property for both. So that helps people because they don't have to bring a lot to the table, and they're still getting a decent loan. With our direct loan program, it's a very unique product in that we do have a deferred payment, or what we call payment assistance, that where a lower income person would maybe qualify to get some of their mortgage payment paid by us, but that is an amount that accrues over the life of the loan, and it's not a grant or free assistance. But it does help them with their buying power, and then they're able to get into a safe and healthy home. And it has to be modest, and it's in an eligible rural area. And I did send you the link if you want to post that. But it's just a great program. And I did do some examples of kind of our income levels just to give your audience what we kind of are looking at. But the direct loan is for very low income and low income. And then the guaranteed loan, they're really working with the lender, and we're guaranteeing that loan. So the interest rate is set by the lender, and the term is typically 30 years. Whereas with our direct loan, we typically do a 33-year term, again, just allowing them a little more buying power by stretching that term out a little bit. And then we set the interest rate. So for example, in July, it was 5%. So it's typically below the market commercial rate. And then that's set to go up to 5.125% in August. And then I don't know what it'll be in September, but that's kind of where our interest rate has been this summer and spring, right around the 5% mark. So just to give you an example, in Franklin County, for a family of up to 4 people, the very low would be $54,500. Low would be $87,200, and then moderate income would be $125,350. And the direct, you have to be low or very low, but with the guaranteed, you can be low to moderate income. And that program is very well funded, and it's available all year round. So we do, if you're into the low to moderate, that's a great program to go through. And then I don't know if you want to get into the home repair right now, or
yeah, I would love to. That was going to be my next question. Yeah,
Okay.
I know that can. You guys have a loan and grant program for home repair. Yeah, I would love to hear about it and about the eligibility for that.
Sure. And did you have any other questions on the home loans?
I don't think so. I mean, that sounds really helpful, and I'll be sure to put a link with the information for our listeners in the
Okay.
show notes.
Then we have what's called 504 versus the 502, and that's our home repair loans and grants. It is again just for the eligible rural homes, and the grant is for very low income homeowners 62 years or older, and it just needs to be at least one of the homeowners. So you could have a husband and a wife where the wife is 62, but the husband's still 58. They could qualify for that. And then we have a loan side of it with a 1% interest rate spread out over 20 years. And with the loan, they can do a lot more with it, like modernize their home, not just repairs and improvements. They can do quite a bit. And that's for up to $40,000. And then the grant is strictly for health and safety issues. So if somebody, has a leaking roof or they need to handicap their home, with accessible items like a new shower or something that's walk-in, something for their situation as they've aged and want to stay in their home. So that's a type of thing that we do. And you can combine both. So somebody could get up to 50,000 through that program.
And you can do both the 502 and the 504 together. It's not mutually.
No. So the 502 is just to purchase a home, and then the 504 is to repair it. Now, we have had people that they purchased a home through the direct or guaranteed program, and then they found something that maybe didn't come up in their inspection report, and they can come to us and we can do a subsequent repair loan, but that's not very typical.
Interesting. Yeah, well, that sounds really helpful. And especially for our realtors that are listening, it's great to have this in their back pocket when working with rural clients. And on that note, these are designed for rural areas. So how does USDA define rural, and how can realtors and potential buyers check if a property they're interested in is eligible?
So that link I sent is to our eligibility website. And you can just go in there and plug in any address, and it will come back and tell you if you're in an eligible area or ineligible. The only two counties that are completely ineligible are Summit and Cuyahoga, just because of Akron and Cleveland take up that full county. But all other 86 counties do have rural areas in them, even Franklin on the outer edges. But basically they just go in, plug in their address, but you can also just click down on the map if you're looking to purchase a home to see if the town you're interested in is eligible or not. And then that also has a lot of useful tools on that website where you can go and do a self-assessment. You can look at the income limits. You can get a lot of information. But for housing, our population cutoff is 20,000 or less is considered eligible.
Ah, I see. Interesting. Yeah, and I bet a lot of people wouldn't guess that, maybe their area qualifies for this. So that's really helpful that
Yeah.
you can just type in a location and it'll pop up if it's eligible or not. That's awesome. And yeah, I'll be sure to send that tool in our show notes. But moving along, like as you look at Ohio's rural housing needs, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities that you see?
I'll say it this way, Anastasia. I may first encourage all the realtors to go in and look at that tool, because realtors know their area, they know the community, and by looking through that, they'll get a pretty good idea of what areas are acceptable and which ones are not, and really guide their client into the best opportunity. So just really encourage people to take some time in that tool. Going forward, we've got a couple of things coming up, and this is where we're really looking at, Lily, Christie and I were just discussing having kind of even academic advisory panel, and speaking on this issue more broadly, the demographics that we're facing, looking at some of that. We've got, back in 2011, we know that boomers were retiring at 10,000 a day. You advance 15 years and 14 years, and it's they're doing something else at 10,000 a day. They're really retiring. So what does that look like, and what does that look like for demographics? And so trying to understand the increased supply that will be coming on the market. And typically this is a supply that is not necessarily well taken care of. It's not ready for somebody to move in. So there's going to be some capital needs that are going to need to be done. At the same time, we're seeing the millennial bump kind of wrapping up. So over the next probably 2 years, those first-time home buyer millennials will be aging out. So we're seeing an increase in supply at a decrease in demand. And if interest rates don't start to decrease a little bit, the concern is Ohio will face somewhat what the South is facing right now, and even parts of the West, which is a deflationary market. And we really want to make sure that, we're protecting people. We're not putting somebody in a situation where they're, paying top dollar for a house that now is going to continue to be worth less over the next several years. We really want to see that appreciation increase, and, from steady to a nice steady appreciation rate makes for a great market for everybody. So that's really one of the things we're concerned about right now.
That's going to be an interesting next few years and decade, seeing how that turns out. But when I think of when it comes to Ohio's housing needs and stock and supply is partnerships, and how bringing kind of the right groups together can make a very big difference. So from your wealth of knowledge and experience, what do you think are the most effective ways to build partnerships between public agencies, USDA, realtors, and private investors in a way to tackle these housing needs, and especially in the rural areas?
Well, I'll make a pitch in this one. Stay a member of your local realtor association. That is not an official position of the Trump administration. I'm just saying. But from a personal perspective, I can say, make sure that you're participating, being plugged in, and keeping those communication lines open. That is really essential, and especially for that niche information. And whether we talk about whether it's the guaranteed loans, the direct loans, knowing as changes come up, we are waiting right now on the updates from the big, beautiful bill passage, and waiting for our updates on that, because that's going to lay out some of our budgeting for the next several months, let alone next year. That kind of information, as we get that and are able to share that out, is absolutely critical, and it will impact, the amount of homes that can be purchased, low income, very low income, and as those numbers shift or change or adjust, making sure we're able to communicate that. So I just say, stay plugged in. That is the best thing you can do at all costs.
Yeah. And
our staff is always available. Like we're very well situated across the state to always meet with our partners. And some examples of our partnerships are, sometimes we work with Habitat for Humanity, and we go through that. So they might get their 502 loan through us. And because it's a Habitat home, it's a lot less of a loan from us. And so that helps conserve our funding. And then the homeowner is involved in the build and Habitat. So that's a good way. We do have a self-help grantee recipient. They're the Community Action in Fayette County, and they cover, I think, a 3-county area down there by our Hillsborough office. And they also use our direct home loan, and then it's a self-help where they all work on each other's houses until they're complete. So that's always a kind of a neat little program that we have here. And then just in general, we do work with realtors, we work with some packagers, and we just try to make sure that everybody has, because our program's kind of unique and it does take a little bit longer, we try to make sure that everybody has all of the information up front, so there's no kind of misunderstandings with it, just because it does work a little bit different. But we try to partner just at the local level, especially for home repair. So we do look for those relationships all the time.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you both, and staying, plugged in and up to date on all of the changing housing landscapes and all of the different programs that are out there that, maybe people don't even know about. That's why I'm so happy to hear from you both on these loans and grants and services, because I didn't even know about these. So it's so helpful to kind of spread that word, and we're constantly putting stuff and information and news on our website. So it's really great to hear from folks like you at USDA, just to see what's out there and how people can get that assistance. So thank you both so much. And thank you for joining us today. I don't think I have any more questions. I mean, we at Ohio Realtors are so grateful to all of the assistance that you have for our members and the communities that they serve. And we're so excited to see these programs continue to grow and help more families. So again, thank you so much. It was so great to chat with you today.
Thank you, Anastasia, for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then I can say this now on behalf of the president, the secretary, God bless Ohio Realtors.
God bless. Thank you. And to our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about USDA's housing programs, I will include links in the show notes. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.